Section 1. Introduction. The Ageless Dilemma. What does it mean to be good in a world ruled by power? It's a question as old as humanity itself, echoing from the chambers of ancient temples to the backrooms of modern politics. It haunts philosophers, tempts leaders, and tugs at the conscience of every thinking person. Can you hold on to your principles and still rise to power? Or must power always come at the cost of purity? Since the earliest empires, civilization has walked a trembling tightrope between virtue and ambition. Pharaohs, Caesars, and sultans, each cloaked in symbols of righteousness, faced the brutal demands of rule. Sometimes they sacrificed goodness to preserve order. Sometimes they fell because they refused to. This isn't just a historical riddle, it's a personal struggle. You've felt it. We all have. When you bite your tongue in a meeting because honesty might cost your promotion. When you flatter someone you dislike to keep peace. When you watch injustice unfold and tell yourself it's not your fight. These moments aren't trivial. They're the modern echoes of a timeless war between ethics and survival. And the deeper tragedy. We're often taught these values, truths, kindness, justices, if they can thrive in any environment. But life, as it turns out, isn't a classroom, it's an arena. And in the arena, ideals are often bloodied before they are crowned. Enter the 16th century and enter a man who dared to stop pretending. Niccolò Machiavelli. With a mind sharpened by experience and a pen that cut deeper than any sword, Machiavelli didn't simply question conventional morality, he dissected it. He didn't moralize, he analyzed. Where others saw the world as it should be, he stared unflinchingly at the world as it is. And what he found was not evil but clarity. To Machiavelli, morality and power were not mortal enemies. They were instrument tools in a ruler's arsenal. Each had its time. Each had its place. And the true art of leadership lay not in choosing one over the other, but in mastering both. In this video, we dive into how Machiavelli shattered the illusion that good intentions are enough. We explore how he dismantled the ancient dichotomy between virtue and success. And we ask, in our complex, chaotic world, did Machiavelli simply describe the darkness? Or did he teach us how to walk through it with open eyes? Section 2. The Renaissance Rebel. To understand Machiavelli, you must first understand the storm he was born into. Florence, 1469. A city of breathtaking beauty and brutal politics. The Renaissance had lit the skies of Europe with art, science, and philosophy. But beneath the marble domes and frescoed cathedrals, there was blood on the cobblestones. Italy wasn't a nation, it was a chessboard, a mosaic of rival city-states, locked in endless schemes and shifting allegiances. Honor was a word on lips. Betrayal was the language of survival. It was a time when popes raised armies, and sermons competed with swords. The church preached salvation on Sundays, and plotted assassinations on Mondays. Power was cloaked in virtue, but driven by vice. This wasn't a world for dreamers. It was a world for those who saw through the mask. Machiavelli was not born into wealth or nobility. He rose through intelligence, diligence, and a sharp sense of reality. As a diplomat and senior official in the Florentine Republic, he negotiated with kings, survived betrayals, and witnessed firsthand the raw mechanics of politics. He wasn't theorizing from an ivory tower, he was in the trenches. Then, in a twist as cruel as history itself, the very system he served turned on him. When the powerful Medici family returned to power, Machiavelli was accused of conspiracy, imprisoned, and tortured. The irony: he wasn't guilty. But in politics, truth is often irrelevant. This experience didn't embitter him, it awakened him. He saw with terrifying clarity that morality alone cannot save you. That the virtuous are often devoured by those more ruthless. That power, if it is to endure, must be flexible, even when it offends our sense of right. And so, exiled and disgraced, he wrote the work that would immortalize him, The Prince. It was unlike anything Europe had seen. It didn't sing hymns to justice or idealism. It offered something more dangerous and subtle. It asked not what a ruler should be, but what a ruler must do. It stripped politics of its illusions, and dressed it in cold logic. Machiavelli argued that success often demands difficult choices. That a leader must learn to be both feared and loved, but, if forced to choose, better to be feared. That kindness without strength invites contempt. That promises, if kept blindly, become shackles. And that appearances, though false, often hold more power than truth. His words scandalized the elite and frightened the moralists. But beneath the outrage, there was a grudging respect. because deep down, they knew he was right. Machiavelli wasn't teaching men to be monsters. He was showing them how to survive in a world where monsters already ruled. Section 3. The Myth of the Good Ruler. In the classical imagination, the ruler was not merely a person of authority, but a living emblem of virtue. Plato envisioned the philosopher king wise, detached from selfish desires, guided solely by the good of the republic. Aristotle imagined the statesman as one who harmonized reason with civic responsibility, whose soul mirrored the balance he brought to the polis. In this ancient worldview, power and morality were not only compatible, they were inseparable. But Machiavelli, writing amidst the blood-stained corridors of Renaissance politics, saw something very different. He saw the corpses of idealists, buried under the ruins of their dreams. He saw noble intentions turned into fatal weaknesses. So he took the Platonic ideal and shattered it, exposing the harsh glare of reality beneath. He wrote with brutal clarity, "A man who wishes to make a profession of goodness in everything is bound to come to ruin, among so many who are not good." This was not just a critique, it was a warning. In a world where daggers hide behind smiles, where promises are made to be broken, the pure of heart are often the first to fall. To Machiavelli, the good man was not noble, he was naive. And naivete in politics is not only dangerous, it is deadly. He rejected the Greek notion of virtue as moral excellence, and redefined it entirely. His virtue was a Roman concept of forceful vitality, an inner strength that bends fortune to one's will. Virtue was not about being righteous. It was about being capable. It was about the power to act boldly, to seize opportunity, to respond to chaos with decisive motion. The moral idealist hesitates, torn by ethics. The man of virtue acts, and survives. To rule effectively, Machiavelli argued, one must not only understand laws, but understand men. And men, he said, are ungrateful, fickle, deceptive, cowardly, and greedy. They are not governed by truth, but by appearances. Therefore, a ruler must become a master of masks projecting honesty, compassion, and integrity, even when acting in secret with cunning and ruthlessness. He did not deny that morality was useful. But he made a radical distinction. Private morality and public morality were not the same. A leader may have to lie for peace, betray for security, and kill for stability. The point was not to abandon ethics, but to wield them like a weapon, using them when they served power, discarding them when they endangered it. In turning Plato's dream upside down, Machiavelli forced the world to confront an ugly but enduring truth. Leadership is not about embodying what humanity ought to be. It is about navigating what humanity is. And that navigation often demands choices that philosophers cannot afford to make, but rulers must. Section 4. When evil is necessary. In one of the most unsettling turns in the history of political thought, Machiavelli introduced a concept that would echo through centuries of governance, revolution, and war. Evil, in certain moments, is not just inevitable, it is necessary. To the moral thinker, this sounds like blasphemy, but to Machiavelli, who had seen Florence torn apart by idealism and invaded by hypocrisy, it was a grim but honest truth. He believed that cruelty, deception, and fear could serve a moral function not as virtues in themselves, but as tools to achieve stability, peace, and order in a world where chaos is always waiting to return. He pointed to history, not with reverence, but with calculation. Cesare Borgia, he wrote, secured peace, not by kindness, but by terror. He understood that a single, brutal act could prevent years of bloodshed. That to kill a few at the right time might save thousands in the long run. In Machiavelli's mind, the surgeon who amputates a limb to save a life is no monster, he is a realist. This was not a celebration of evil. It was a call for strategic clarity. If harm must be done, do it swiftly, cleanly, and with purpose. Do not allow prolonged cruelty, it breeds resentment and rebellion. Instead, make your violence surgical, and your mercy theatrical. Shock your enemies with strength. Comfort your people with justice. Machiavelli's famous maxim encapsulates this ruthless wisdom. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But this fear was not sadism, with stability. Love is fragile. It is conditional, emotional, and easily lost. Fear, on the other hand, is enduring. It roots itself in survival, and leaves no room for betrayal. A leader who is feared is less likely to be challenged, more likely to maintain order. Yet even in this darkness, there is a twisted kind of ethics. Machiavelli did not propose evil for its own sake. He argued for evil as a shield, a tragic necessity. Because to govern humans, you must understand what they respond to. And too often, they respond not to virtue, but to strength. His view startled the Renaissance. It scandalized the Church. It continues to unsettle us because it forces a question we try not to ask. What if morality, taken too far, becomes dangerous? What if in clinging to goodness, we allow evil to win? Machiavelli's answer was chilling but clear. In a cruel world, goodness that leads to ruin is not good at all, and a lie that protects the innocent may be more virtuous than a truth that causes their deaths. In this way, he gave us not a guide to tyranny but a mirror. One that reflects not only the face of the ruler, but the soul of the ruled. For if we demand only goodness from our leaders, while rewarding cunning, then perhaps it is not just our rulers who must change but ourselves. Section 5. Why we still need Machiavelli. In today's world, Niccolò Machiavelli is often seen as a villain in the grand theater of political philosophy. His name echoes in headlines and speeches as a symbol of cold manipulation, backroom deals, and ruthless ambition. To call someone Machiavellian is to accuse them of scheming, of abandoning ethics in pursuit of unchecked power. It's a label soaked in suspicion. But the truth is far more complicated and far more relevant. Machiavelli was not a cheerleader for evil. He was not a monster wearing the cloak of intellect. What he truly detested was not virtue, but false virtue. He didn't reject morality itself, he rejected the way it was used as a mask. A mask worn by kings, priests, and politicians who preached piety by day and practiced cruelty by night. He looked at the powerful and saw actors on a stage, cloaked in robes of righteousness, reciting lines about justice while orchestrating betrayal behind the curtain. At his core, Machiavelli was a radical truth-teller, a political surgeon, willing to cut through illusions and expose the raw anatomy of power. He didn't seek to corrupt morality, he sought to rescue it from hypocrisy, and in doing so, he offered us something dangerous, yet indispensable: clarity. He forces us to ask uncomfortable questions, not just about leaders, but about ourselves. How often do we mistake image for integrity? How many of our heroes are just better at pretending? How much of our trust is earned in? How much is simply sold to us through slogans and smiles? In an age dominated by PR campaigns, carefully crafted personas, and media-friendly soundbites, Machiavelli becomes not less relevant, but more essential. He becomes the flashlight in a dark room of deception. His realism is not cynicism, it's defense. Defense against the predators who dress like prophets. He reminds us that behind every speech about justice, there may be a spreadsheet of conquest, that sometimes, a polished halo is just hiding sharpened horns. Machiavelli doesn't ask us to love this truth, he only asks us to see it, to open our eyes, to refuse to be fooled. So why do we still need Machiavelli? Because the modern world is not short on morality, it's overflowing with moral theater. Because we're not suffering from a lack of good words, but from a shortage of honest ones. And because the leaders who smile the brightest may still burn the world behind closed doors. To study Machiavelli is not to become ruthless. It is to become awake. To read him is to gain the political X-ray vision that helps us detect the fractures beneath smooth surfaces, the shadows cast by golden thrones. We may not agree with everything he says, but we ignore him at our peril. Section 6. The dilemma is dead. So morality or power? This is the question that has haunted rulers, generals, and everyday people for centuries. Can one be both good and effective? Must we choose between having a conscience and holding influence? For Machiavelli, this was never a real choice. It was a trap, a distraction, a false dichotomy created by those who benefit from our confusion. He argued that true leadership does not exist in some moral fairy tale where virtue always wins and evil always loses. The real world is more brutal, more chaotic, and far less fair. In such a world, a leader must not ask, what is the most virtuous path? But rather, what is the path that ensures survival, without losing my soul? This doesn't mean abandoning values. It means knowing when to bend them, and when to hold the line. It means having the emotional intelligence to adapt. To wear many faces, not because you're a fraud but because the world demands it. Machiavelli knew that idealism without strategy leads to ruin. That courage without calculation is a death wish. And that sometimes, mercy must wear armor or be mistaken for weakness. He wasn't advocating for tyranny. He was making a case for reality. He believed that effectiveness is itself a kind of virtue. That a leader who protects the people even through harsh means is more moral than one who clings to purity while letting his kingdom fall. And this is where Machiavelli flips the script on classical morality. He doesn't throw ethics away. He reframes them. He elevates truth over pretense. He dares to say that power, when used wisely and strategically, can serve justice better than hollow goodness ever could. While others offered ideals carved in marble, Machiavelli offered tools forged in fire, not prayers, but principles, not commandments, but strategies. He handed leaders the compass, not the map, the scalpel, not the painting. He believed leadership was not a question of saint or tyrant, but of balance, of timing, of knowing when to be feared and when to be loved, when to speak softly, and when to strike hard, when to be the land, when to be the lion. And so we arrive at his enduring question: do we want to be good or do we want to be in control? It's not just a question for rulers, it's a question for parents, for teachers, for lovers, for dreamers, for you and me. Every day, we navigate that tightrope. We wonder, if I stand by my values, will I be ignored? If I play the game, will I lose myself? But Machiavelli offers a third way. He whispers, you can be both, if you're wise enough to know when to choose which. Because maybe, just maybe, the greatest power is knowing when to let go of it, and the highest morality might just lie in wielding strength with restraint.